I am so excited to finally be filming videos on a proper camera. And yeah, honestly, this has been a long time coming, as you guys have probably seen if you've been following the channel for any time at all. I'm always dealing with storage issues or tripod issues or something else. So yeah, just having a dedicated camera to be able to film all my workouts on it is just a dream. So the camera that I've got, for anyone that actually cares, is a Sony SV1 Mark II, which is basically just like an entry-level Sony camera. It's very small. You can't change the lenses, so it's not like a big, huge kind of DSLR style, but for traveling and just for a first proper camera, it's perfect. So highly recommend that. And yeah, we'll get into the session first and then we'll talk about the stuff later. But here I'm actually training with my mate Matty at a gym called Sanctuary Gym, which is in Durham. So a little bit far from my house, but definitely worth the travel. Obviously, one, to see my mate, but two, to visit a new gym and get a crazy session in. So yeah, here I'm basically hitting back and biceps. So I will often just hit back by itself. Recently, if I've had a good rest and I've had some food and I'm feeling like my biceps have recovered, I will then go ahead and do back and biceps. I think what's happened is because I've been doing biceps so frequently, my biceps have built up such a crazy kind of tolerance and workload that they recover so well. So usually at the end of a back session, they would be absolutely fried. But because I've just often done literally biceps by themselves for sometimes like over an hour session, just focusing solely on kind of single arm, multiple, 4 or 5 sets of sometimes 10, 15, 20 reps with drop sets, that has allowed me to really build up my arms. And, not everyone has the time to do that. Recently, I've been training a lot more frequently, but each session has a lot less volume per muscle group. So rather than doing like chest, shoulders, and triceps, I'll just do, for example, triceps. But in the past, when I worked a labouring job and when I could only get to the gym, or it was more accessible for me to get to the gym, less in a week. Whereas now I'd rather go more often, especially having the home gym, which you'll see in future workouts. But yeah, that works for me. So don't always copy my training, but definitely use elements for yourself and try it out, which is, the best advice anyone can really give. Be open-minded, but definitely focus on what works for you. So yeah, that being said, today I am doing biceps as well, but for now, focusing on back. So this row here, I can really load up super heavy. If you're pulling sort of close to your body and, your elbows down by your side, it's going to be a lot more lat focused. This is kind of rear delts, upper back, which I'm very, very strong on. So yeah, I mean, the range of motion, I'm getting a really good stretch, but obviously I'm not pulling it back like crazy far. Then again, single arm does allow me to get back further because you're not fixed with your torso. So perhaps even if I'd have gone double arm, it would have been even less. But yeah, I mean, you could argue that dropping the weight, I could get more reps. But for the style of set that I was feeling on this one, it was just a dirty, heavy set, basically. So definitely 100,000% using straps on this one, because that is going to be absolutely crucial to making sure that my back is not being limited by my forearm and my grip strength. So don't want to talk about this all the time, but, one thing you hear people say sometimes is, I don't want to train back with straps because then what will happen is my forearms will get weak and blah, blah, blah. But your forearms realistically are never going to be stronger than your back. So all you're doing is basically just getting to a point where your back's been fatigued to a decent amount, and then forearms have just absolutely let you down because you're getting so tired in that area, and that is affecting your overall back workout. So yes, by doing that you're working more forearms, but your back's then getting limited. And if you really want to work your forearms, just do that on a separate day. So yeah, that's something I 100% stand by, and if you really know what you're talking about, you wouldn't be having that argument, that's for sure. So moving on from that row, then onto a lat pull down. I absolutely love the Mag Grip. So Mag Grip is a brand name. I think it stands for maximum added grip, but you'll see them often on the YouTube channel here, because if I ever do any sort of pull down, I'll always likely use one of them at least for a few of the sets. So yeah, this one here, this gym, obviously really, really good gym. As you can see from, just the few clips that I've put on here, they've got some great equipment. Really cool place as well. Nice vibe. You know, you can have the shutters up here. I think it's also 24-hour if you get a key fob. So I just paid for a day pass, but my mate goes there all the time. So yeah, Sanctuary Gym in Durham. Check it out. But yeah, so mag grip pull downs, pretty heavy on this one. Controlling it on the way up, so not using insane momentum. And you can see I'm basically still lifting my chest up at the top, so I'm not kind of caving my chest in, but I'm not leaning back so far that it becomes more of kind of a horizontal row. So really trying to tax the lats, and I've definitely been doing a lot more lat biased back workouts recently. I'd probably say since that video I did with Lee that's on my channel, the bodybuilder, ever since that I've really been focusing, because I basically just realized that I can actually pose, but I just don't have as big lats as I would wish to kind of hit those sort of poses. So yeah, that's been a learning experience, and I would say, yeah, they've come up a little bit, not huge amount, but then again, I've only had a short amount of time in a surplus, which is interesting actually, because the video that you're watching here, I'm very much bulked up, whereas now I'm shredded right down. So either way, finish those lat pull downs, and now onto a single arm row. So this was really nice. The only problem with this machine is I've got such long arms that I can't actually just jump on it and start going. I have to grab a kind of foam block or some sort of yoga block, anything basically that I can wedge in between my chest and the seat to give it more distance from where the handle will hit the metal there. So that is literally just giving me more muscle building potential, because I'm working through a longer range of motion, more time under tension, and obviously, I mean, it just feels better. If I don't do that, I literally have to basically use mental capacity to gauge how far I'm going to stop before I hit the bottom there. If it was a little bit longer, I potentially would do the set where it's almost like a pause rep, but I'm letting tension off. So I'd let the arm go all the way to the top or all the way forward. I'd then kind of just let it hit the top there, and then I'd reset. So sometimes doing that for me, if I'm really, really desperate to use the machine in a way, or I really do like the range of motion, but it's just not quite long enough, then what I'll do is I'll do that, because then I don't have to worry so much about, right, how close am I to hitting it? I almost just control it down to a steady pace. It'll then rack, and then I'll go for it again. So in the future, you'll probably see me do that at my gym that's close to my house, because there is a sort of diagonal lat pull down machine, which I will do on there. And there is another machine that I can't remember right now, but I will also kind of rest for like literally half a second. So it's a pause rep in a way, but I'm not taking all the tension. I'm letting the machine kind of do that for a second. But yeah, either way, this is a nice machine. Good lat focus as well. Single arm for me on pretty much most exercises works fantastically. That's because I have the time and I want to spend the time to do that. So if you're someone that, you know, struggles to fit it into your routine, or you don't like spending that much time in the gym, then perhaps don't focus so much on single arm stuff. So we've got another set here, just rolling through these, and I'm going pretty heavy, to be fair. This, as you can see, is a nice range of motion again. And as I was saying previously, I'm really bulked up in this state. So I'm very, very strong compared to what I would be perhaps now. That being said, my strength has held very well, but not to the point where I could do the exact same weight for the exact number of reps. It'll be a little bit less. However, yeah, like I said, very, very happy with how the strength has maintained. Granted, I'm not doing as many low rep sets as I used to in previous years. So when I was probably, 18, 19, 20, I used to always consistently do 3, 4, 5 rep kind of bench press, deadlift sets. Even sometimes rows and squats would be consistently at kind of 8. But even still, for me, that's pretty low now. I tend to go more sort of 10, and then sometimes even some partials. So yeah, I'd say that is perhaps maybe why the strength is disguised a little bit more, I guess, but that's just a theory. Either way, obviously I would notice if it was dropping right down. And yeah, overall, I'd say that I just am consistently happy with the way it's been over the course of this cut. So yeah, here, I don't know my exact weight. I would imagine I was probably sitting around the mid 250s, probably, maybe low 250s. I think I was around 253 to 256 pounds for quite a while. So that was sort of the weight where I was getting pretty stuck at. And now I've dropped down to basically 226. So yeah, pretty much dropped 30 pounds, which is around, I think, 14 kilos, maybe something like that. So yeah, good amount. But then again, I always say to people, like, I'm literally then eating, 5,000 to 6,000 calories a day, dropping it right back down because it was a very severe cut, dropping it right back down. And actually what happened there was, yeah, I lost weight very quickly and I was able to stick to it, but I would not want to do that for like 16 weeks. So just doing it for like 8 weeks was fine and got me to a really nice level of leanness. But yeah, like I said, if I had to do that for more time to get sort of competition ready and absolutely diced, then it would probably be a bit more of a problem. So yeah, again, for me, that worked in the past. I've much preferred to do longer duration of diets. This time I was intermittent fasting from pretty much like midnight. I'd have my last meal and then I'd go to sleep, obviously wake up, and then wouldn't have my first meal until around 10 p.m. or 9 p.m. at the earliest. So that's pretty much a 22-hour fast. And as soon as I started doing that, it just felt great. I don't know why it feels easier for me to do that. I know obviously fasting is a technique that people use, but to that extent, it just still felt beneficial. And then as soon as I've increased my calories from that point, I've then just had to get some carbs in before the training session, which has been enjoyable. So yeah, anyway, jumping into this one now, straight into biceps, incline curls for me, pretty much can never go wrong. I mean, the only thing here, I can't really remember if this was a problem, but these dumbbells do look very long. So I'd say potentially that's just making me kind of push my arms out a little bit, either side of my legs, rather than a bit more directly straight. But it was obviously working for me because I did multiple sets, and if not, then I would have stopped and found something else as an alternative. So this one here, you can see my arms are just resting, or not resting, but at least being stretched behind my torso. So they're behind my body. At least the upper part of my arm is behind my body the whole set. And then when I curl it up, obviously it slightly comes in front with my lower arm, but still my upper arm and shoulder is still kind of in line or behind my torso there. However, when you see the next exercise I do, I completely vary that and have my arms in front of my body. And that's something which I would really recommend you guys try if you haven't already. So with my tricep training, I will visualize it as different parts of the tricep. And this is not potentially the best way to do it. It's just explaining my thought process. When I do biceps, I don't do that. I just think of planes of motion. So I'll at least try and do 2 bicep exercises. And one of them will be with my arm. Well, I do 3 planes of motion and I'll pick 2 out of that and make sure they're different. So number 1 would be, for example, this one here, where the arm is basically going into a stretch behind the body, so behind the torso. That's really, really good. So you've got this. You could do standing cable curls where you kind of walk in front of the machine, have 2 handles, and then, curl it up. And obviously each rep you go back, the arm will be stretched behind you, and that tension will be through the cable, through your bicep there. So you've got that. You could do single arm. You could also do them seated on a bench with cables. There's a few different options there. Obviously, also varying the degree that you're at an incline can change where exactly it kind of impacts your bicep, I would suppose. But I always go for around this level, sometimes a little bit further back, but yeah, anyway, focusing on the different plane from there would be straight down. So, for example, a seated hammer curl where your torso is straight up and your arms then come straight down by your side. Or, for example, a standing alternating dumbbell curl, or a standing barbell curl, or a standing hammer curl. What I'm trying to say there is each time your arms come straight, then your arms will be basically in line with your body going straight down, almost down by your legs. And yeah, that is pretty much what I'm looking at here. So you could argue potentially this is a little bit in front of the torso, but either or is pretty much almost directly straight down after each rep. So as you can see there, the top of my arm isn't going back down, versus if there was some crazy machine where the cables literally went into the floor and they were being pulled down and down and down, my arm would continue to drop down and go past my knees, if that makes sense. And that would be kind of imitating the exercise that I just did. So what I would say is pick one of those 2, or the third one would be arms in front. So for example, a preacher curl, and that's a good example. Also spider curls where your chest is on a bench. I always prefer to do those with an easy bar and load that up with a decent amount of weight each side. But yeah, obviously then when you're kind of in that rested stretch position, like literally right here where I'm taking a little breath, your arms would be then in front of your body. So for example, if you were controlling it down on a preacher curl, almost you might have a little pause or a breath at the bottom, or even when you're curled and contracted at the top, both of those areas of the rep, your arm will be in front of your body. Okay, so like I said, this one is a bit of discrepancy. You could argue it's straight down or slightly in front, but either way, those were the two kind of variations that I picked. And yeah, like I said, if I was you guys, I would choose two of those, potentially vary it each week, but make sure you still track your reps. Of course, that is so important. Make sure you're progressing and overloading the muscle. But yeah, either way, this was a really good workout. So different machines is also going to shock the body. But like I said, I wouldn't potentially do a different session every single week. I do find that it's useful for me to track certain exercises and make sure I am going up in weight. But yeah, variation's also good. So, you know, with everything, realistically, a balance is going to be your best bet. Just making sure that you're kind of prepared for what's going to happen at different gyms if, you know, machines are taken or the machine's out of order. Obviously, being open-minded and being able to adapt is important. But yeah, definitely having staples is fantastic. So at this point here, just running through a few poses. It'll be really interesting for you guys to see the videos that I've been posting recently. So I filmed a lot of these, which are backlogged because obviously just got the camera. And then I realized very quickly that I was kind of accumulating a lot of footage. So I then took a little break and started to then diet down, and then have documented that as well. So I'm going to now try and post these videos pretty much as quickly as possible, which will be really interesting for you guys to then watch and see the transition, because it'll be in a shorter period of time. So again, take that with a pinch of salt. Don't expect that to be achievable with the days that I post it, because this is across the span of, like I said, at least 2 months, probably between the footage that you're seeing here, and then if you watch videos in consistency and I'm actually proactive with posting them, they'll be showing footage from literally today, which is well, we're in late October now. So yeah, this was back in August, so I don't know exactly when in August, but yeah, August, September, October, so pretty much 2 months, I'd say. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this first video. This one's with obviously a voiceover afterwards, so potentially it's a little bit out of touch with what was actually going on in the session, but most of it realistically here was just catching up with my mate, which is why there was no need for me to record it. In the sessions which you'll see in the future, pretty much majority of those will be filmed with a microphone during the workout, so you'll be able to get some insights into what I'm actually thinking, my exercise choices, and then some of the sets as well. I won't actually film every single one because they're just a bit repetitive, or you know, there's just no need to go through every single one. But if I do that, obviously then I can let you know how many sets I've done at the end of the workout and kind of just go from there. But yeah, if you guys have got any ideas for future videos or anything you'd like to see on the channel, as always, drop it down in the comments there. And yeah, would really appreciate it. Subscribe. At this point in time, we are pushing for 200 subscribers. So yeah, hopefully in the future we'll be saying, you know, pushing for 2,000. But yeah, it's been a pleasure narrating this, and I'm going to drop my Instagram down in the description. So if any of you guys have got any questions regarding training, nutrition, anything like that, drop me a message on Instagram. That's where I'm kind of most responsive to DMs. And yeah, that'll be everything.